Hello everyone, my name is Noah Spivak and I will be giving a short presentation on the self-governed, specifically homeless encampments, with a focus on the Dufferin Grove Park initiative, a model based on the housing first practices of streets to homes that was implemented through collaboration with community partners. This approach was focused on each individual in order to build trust and provide direct support. This initiative successfully supported 90 individuals in transitioning from encampments to safer indoor spaces. Before diving into the presentation, we need to outline what homeless encampments are and what their positive and negative attributes are. I'll hand the mic over to the former U.S. President Barack Obama to give us a brief description of homeless encampments.
Homeless encampments are makeshift temporary living areas or communities often composed of tents, ad hoc structures, or vehicles. They vary in size, organization, and duration depending on the community living there and the resources available to them. Their conception is often a direct response to increased housing costs, lack of affordable housing options, and shelter availability. In addition, insufficient resources and services to support those experiencing homelessness usually lead to encampments as a last resort for immediate shelter from the elements. Addressing homelessness typically involves not only providing immediate shelter and services, but also tackling the underlying causes such as a lack of affordable housing, mental health issues, and economic inequalities.
Thanks for the great description. Do you think you could tell us a bit more about the pros and cons of encampments?
Sure thing, Noah. Well, some of the pros are the obvious. Shelter from the elements, a sense of community, and autonomy. Autonomy is what separates encampments from homeless shelters and other temporary solutions. Individuals are able to stay in one place, have their own belongings, and have some element of privacy. In addition to all these, it is a pretty low-cost option for people who have nowhere else to go. The list of cons, however, seems to stretch much longer. There is a lack of basic services such as sanitation and clean water. People are more exposed to theft and violence. Extreme weather conditions can be brutal. There are little access to resources. Encampment residents face legal conflicts and disputes with authorities, and they isolate the public from access to these public parks.
Thanks for that further analysis. Now let's take a look at some statistics. The number of homeless individuals in Toronto has risen to over 10,500 people as of April 2023. This is a 6% increase over the last year. Lack of space in shelters turned away an average of 140 people daily. Taking a look at the demographics, 80% of those without stable housing are men. Notably, a disproportionate 23% identify as Indigenous. The average age amongst the people surveyed was 43 years old, and 7% of the people experiencing homelessness are veterans. As of mid-May 2023, 200 camps were set up around the city. What can we as architects do to address homeless encampments? When it boils down to it, the future of combating homelessness and reducing encampments is done through policy, collaboration, and adequate resources and services. As architects, there are several things we can do to combat homeless encampments and improve people's quality of life. Designing affordable housing, solutions that prioritize dignity and comfort using low-cost construction methods, designing transitional housing, safe places for people to live temporarily as they search for permanent homes, shelter design. Many shelters face issues of hygiene, safety, and privacy. These are all issues that can be reduced through good design. Advocacy. This may be the most important thing we can do to address the root of the problem, pushing for policies that focus on providing affordable housing and other homeless prevention efforts. These are all things that we can do to help get people off the streets. This brings me to Dufferin Grove Park, a case study that uses a comprehensive method of support services and individualized attention to help people get off the streets. Dufferin Grove Park is located near the intersection of Dufferin Avenue and Bloor Street West. The park services a large community and includes a sports field, basketball court, wading pool, playground, fire pits, community garden, and community bake oven. In addition, both a high school and primary school flank either side of the park and use it frequently. In August 2021, there were 22 tents erected in the park, representing a variety of demographics. The city had begun receiving multiple messages from the community regarding the use of park amenities. The community expressed support to assist these individuals in accessing permanent housing as a solution for all those involved. The Dufferin Grove Park model builds upon a housing-first approach. Housing First focuses on finding people housing as quickly as possible without any preconditions. The philosophy behind this approach is that people are able to find more success moving forward with their lives in other aspects if they have secured housing. Housing often is the number one focus of many people experiencing homelessness, which makes it difficult to move forwards. The Housing First approach includes providing individualized, person-centered supports that are strength-based, trauma-informed, grounded in a harm reduction philosophy, and promote self-sufficiency. The 5 principles of Housing First in Toronto are rapid access to housing, no housing readiness requirement, individual choice, strength-based, person-centered supports, and community integration. Beginning on August 11, 2021, the city implemented an enhanced Housing First model for Dufferin Grove Park. This approach enabled the overwhelming majority of individuals in the encampment to transition to permanent housing and/or safe indoor spaces without the use of enforcement. The objectives of the Dufferin Grove model were 1. To increase engagement and conversation about housing plans between individuals living in encampments and service providers. 2. To meet the immediate needs of individuals living in the encampment via mobile resource provisions of health and social support, thus allowing people to focus on housing and be more open to dialogue with service providers. 3. To connect those living in the encampment to safer indoor spaces, unlike the conditions of many shelters in Toronto. And 4. To localize encampment response strategies for greater impact. Every encampment is different based on the surrounding area, resources, and services available. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. The main way this approach was exercised in Dufferin Grove Park was through both collaborative and integrated approaches and comprehensive and innovative support offerings. The former was implemented through working groups that were established to streamline implementation and service coordination, an on-site information and help center, and weekly case conference meetings between the city and partners. The latter can be seen through the implementation of physical and mental health care provisions on site, mobile social service offerings on site, dedicated permanent and supportive housing options, and a maintenance and sanitation strategy to keep the rest of the park safe and open. All individuals encountered by staff in the Dufferin Grove encampment were offered safer indoor space. Over the period of the initiative, 90 individuals had successful outcomes, including referrals to shelters, transitions to permanent housing, or family reunification. Between August and December, 101 encampments were removed from the park. Of these individuals, 25 were transitioned into permanent housing, and 78 accepted referrals into shelter hotel programs, many of whom moved from here into permanent homes. Now let's hear from one of the individuals that benefited from this initiative directly.
Chris just moved into his own apartment unit a few weeks ago.
My lease is as long as I need to stay.
This is your place.
This is my place.
CBC agreed to withhold his last name for privacy reasons. The 33-year-old was unhoused for a year. His last stop was the encampment at Dufferin Grove Park. Since securing permanent housing, his physical health has drastically improved.
It's pretty sad that I had to stay in a park to get housed in the first place when I was out looking for help.
Chris says the process was quick, from engaging with city staff to signing a lease and turning the key. For others, it may take a little longer. The city says it can take 6 to 8 weeks to assist an encampment occupant.
People who are experiencing homelessness have incredibly complex issues in their lives. Everybody has their own unique needs.
But the city and park occupants agree that this is the solution.
We want the city to continue this approach because it's working. We're seeing it with our own eyes.
Last week, encampment resident and advocate Ali Khan Pabani was banned from all city parks, but has remained at Dufferin Grove, providing other unhoused people with supplies.
We don't want to go back to the days of Lamport and violent evictions, the days of Trinity Bellwoods, and with 400 cops and tactical squad and drones flying overhead.
In July, council passed a motion where city staff could begin housing plans even if people were outside.
And we're starting those housing plans right at the parks. So we've had ID clinics, tax clinics, housing health workers. We have a lot of agencies going to our parks and helping the Streets to Homes team to get this outreach.
That's a huge relief for people living in encampments who say the city shelters are not safe. The city says they've moved 5 people from Dufferin Grove directly into apartments, and at least 11 have started viewing units. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
In conclusion, the success of this policy-based model relied on several key factors: expanding access to permanent housing options to meet users' needs, trust and relationship building between individuals in encampments and service providers, deployment of multiple on-site initiatives and resources, continuous engagement with all stakeholders, establishing social and community building spaces within the encampments, a thorough maintenance strategy, and measuring outcomes and engaging the people living in encampments in order to shape their response. As architects, we have a more direct impact on the immediate situation. We can design and build better temporary accommodations to help improve the conditions for those experiencing homelessness. In terms of long-term goals and reduction in homeless encampments altogether, it starts at policy. As architects, we must advocate for proper policy, like the Dufferin Grove Park model, to ensure people are transferred to permanent living situations safely and humanely.
Thank you for watching this presentation, and thank you, Michelle, for organizing this class